بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته, and welcome to Fiqh al-Muamalat online classes. Today's topic is about the contracting party in the contract. We have discussed before that contract is divided in three major components that represent the major pillars, which are the contracting party, the subject matter, and the sigha, or the expression of the contract. So today we'll be discussing one of these pillars, which is the contracting party, or al-aqidah, where we'll be talking about these two contracting party and the different types of conditions required by Sharia in order to validate their engagement into a valid contract. So let's start by saying in transactions, normally the offer and acceptance will be issued by two parties. If we take an example of sales, it is the buyer and the seller. So this is the buyer and the seller that represent the two contracting party, or the contracting party. Of course, in the case of sales, it is the buyer and seller, but it could be in the lease, lessor and leasee. It could be in a mudaraba, capital provider and mudarib. It could be in musharaka, partner one, partner two. It could be in wakala, principal and agent, and so on and so forth. So the contracting parties may take different positions, depends on the nature of the contract. But in our illustration, normally we just give example with the sales, because it's the basic contract and it is the fundamental contract that has been mentioned in the Quran, and all the contracts are built upon it. So in the case of sales, so we have a buyer and a seller, and this could be a male, could be a female, could be a natural person, could be artificial entity like a corporations, and so on and so forth. So let's talk about the Sharia requirements of this contracting party. Number one, the first requirement is basically the puberty requirements, which means that both parties should attain the age of puberty for male and female. Of course, the age of puberty of the person being a pubescent should attend or receive or get some physical sign to determine that status. According to Sharia, for the male, normally it started when he starts ejaculating his sperm in his night dream. This is a physical sign that he has become pubescent. And for the female, of course, at the onset of the menstruation. This is a physical sign that gives both male and female a status of attending the puberty, which basically trigger the Sharia obligations, whereby they will be known as in Sharia mukallaf, which means he will be subject to the compliance of the obligations of Sharia, especially the religion obligations such as fasting, praying, and so on and so forth. However, in some cases, the person may grow up without seeing this kind of physical sign that determine his puberty, and in this case, normally we'll go to the age, and of course, the scholars and school of law determine different ages based on custom. As a result of that, normally when it comes to age, it is left to the authority and the government that determine the age of competency, which is in the most cases, including Malaysia, it is 18 years. So you have 18 years, you have the age of competency requirements, and you are allowed, according to the law, to enter into a contract with the other parties. So here, to combine Sharia requirements and legal requirements, when you attain the age of puberty, basically the Sharia obligations will be triggered, hence you will be mukallaf, so the religion obligation will be imposed upon you, and you have to comply with that, no more rukhsah for you. But when it comes to the legal contract, so basically you will be subject to the legal requirement, which is also acknowledged by Sharia in the case of attending 18 years. So when you become 18 years old, you become legally competent under the Sharia obligations and under the legal requirements, whereby you will be allowed to engage into a different contract. This is the first requirements that determine the puberty at the legal competency age that allowed you to carry on contract. The second one is that the person should be free from any kind of duress and pressures, meaning there is no one force him to enter into this contract against his will. He has a free will to conclude this contract without any kind of pressure from a third party. Of course, this is a bit different. From what's so called in Arabic al-Muttar or Bay' al-Muttar. Al-Muttar is basically the person who sells his assets out of desperate need because of money, desperate need of money. So what he will do, he will sell some of his assets such as a car, maybe a motorbike, TV, mobiles, as a pressure of the financial condition that he's experiencing. And as a result of that, these kind of sales and transactions are valid. So there is no third party that has forced him to do so, but he has kind of an internal financial pressure that push him to sell some of his asset in order to solve his problem. So this kind of sales is valid. Also, sometimes the free consent is not there and has been compromised, but yet contract is valid, such as, for example, the cases of auctions and bankruptcy that sometimes take places in the market. Those are valid contracts despite there is been compromising on the consent, provided it is coming through a court order. Similar for a person, for example, who have problem with his wife, for example, and the court decided for divorce and he refused to divorce, so also the qadi or the court can divorce on behalf of the husband, and the divorce will take place and take its legal effect. So that's where in some cases duress, or some cases the free consent, the will is not taken into account in some special cases. But in overall as a requirements, free consent is one of the requirements of Sharia, because Allah Azza wa Jal says إِلَّا أَن تَكُونَ عَنْ تَرَاضٍ بَيْنَكُمْ. So a taradi or free consent that normally is expressed through offer and acceptance is a key component that basically required in contract. Maybe we'll talk about this in details when we talk about the ijab and qabul, because free consent is reflected in a communications of offer and acceptance. So free consent, no duress, no pressure from a third party. The third requirement is sanity, meaning he's a sound mind and judgment. He's in good status of mind that enable him to distinguish between what is good, what is bad, what is right, and what is wrong, and enable him to realize some benefit for him and push away potential harms that may hurt him. So sound mind or al-aql, or being a person aqil, is another requirement. Hence, if the person is insane, both of them or one of them, the contract will not be valid. In some cases, there are some sicknesses where the person, in some conditions of the weather, like the summer, for example, he will be insane. Then in the winter, he will get back his sanity. So in this scenario, in these cases, the person will be the transaction of the person in the summer will be invalid because he's insane, but his transaction in the winter will be valid because he gets back his sanity. So that's the Sharia rules goes by the status of the sanity of the person. The other requirements is, we call it the maturity or al-rushd, as mentioned in the Quran al-Karim. And the rushd basically is a kind of a good and proper dealing with the money, meaning you handle your money in a very proper way according to the accepted norms of the custom. If you are not dealing with money in a very wise way, so you could be under what's so called al-hajar, which is the following points, or what's so called the financial restriction, whereby the court may appoint some guardians or wali on your financial transactions that monitor your business, monitor your transactions, and make sure your transactions are realizing benefit for you. It's not bringing harm to you. So Normally, this kind of scenario, it is imposed by the court in case you lose the status of maturity, meaning that you are not mature enough to manage your wealth, your money, your property according to the custom without hurting any one of the party that you are dealing with. So that's the overall requirements of the two contracting party. If I may summarize that, puberty and competency age, and free from duress from a third party, and sound mind and judgment and sanity of the person, and maturity and proper dealing with money and wealth, and free from any possible restrictions on his financial dealing. If the person combine all this quality, so he will be competent enough to stand and conclude a contract, and as a result of that, the contract will be valid and take its enforcement accordingly. Thank you very much, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.